Hey guys, tonight we are going on a shopping trip. But leave your wallet at home. Because where we are going, credit cards are useless. We are traveling to the tiny island of Yap in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we are going to earn a fortune. But here is the catch. The money here isn't gold. And it isn't paper. It is limestone, giant, carved, donut-shaped rocks that can weigh more than a Honda Civic. Tonight, you are going to learn what it feels like to risk your life to quarry a 4-ton coin, drag it through a jungle, and float it across 250 miles of open ocean on a bamboo raft. It is the most dangerous banking transaction in human history. So, get ready to sweat, because being rich in Yap is heavy work. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below and let me know. What city are you in right now, and what time is it there? And if you have ever struggled to carry a heavy bag of groceries up the stairs, leave a rock emoji in the comments so I know I'm not alone. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine you are standing on a beach of white sand. The water is that impossible shade of turquoise that only exists in travel brochures. The air smells of salt and frangipani. You are young, strong, and deeply in love. You want to marry the daughter of the village chief, but there is a problem. You are broke. You don't have any rye. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The stone money of Yap. On this island, for centuries, the highest form of currency has been large, circular discs carved from calcite limestone. They range from the size of a dinner plate to the size of a monster truck tire. The value of these stones isn't just about size, it's about the story. A stone that was brought back by a famous navigator, or a stone that cost a few lives to transport, is worth exponentially more than a boring stone. You are literally banking on tragedy and effort. You look at the empty spot in front of your family's hut. It's embarrassing. Your neighbors have 3 massive stones leaning against their trees, signaling to everyone that they are big shots. You have nothing. If you want to pay the bride price, you can't just work extra shifts. You have to go on a quest. You look out at the horizon. Somewhere out there, about 250 miles 400 kilometers to the southwest, lies the island of Palau. This is a niche geological detail. Yap has no limestone. Yap is made of metamorphic rock. It's geologically boring. Palau, however, is a limestone paradise. It has sparkling crystalline calcite that looks like frozen milk. So, to get the money, you have to sail to a foreign country, cut a chunk of their island off, and bring it home. But you can't just hop on a ferry. You have to take a Prohoa Micronesian outrigger canoe. You walk down to the lagoon where your canoe is waiting. It looks fragile. It's basically a hollowed-out tree trunk with a bamboo float attached to the side. It's fast. Yes, it's engineered like a fighter jet of the ancient world. But it's small, and you are planning to tow a rock that weighs as much as an elephant behind it. This leads to a massive academic controversy, the first contact timeline. When did this madness start? Camp A. The oral history says the Opisi have been doing this for 1,000 years. Ever since a legendary navigator named Anagamung traveled to Palau and thought the limestone looked like the full moon. Camp B. The archaeologists argues that the giant stones are actually a relatively recent phenomenon, maybe only a few hundred years old. They suggest that before European metal tools arrived, the stones were much smaller, jewelry-sized. The 4-ton monsters might be a result of later inflation. But you don't care about inflation right now. You care about survival. You stand there, feeling the wind on your face. You know that many canoes leave for Palau and never come back. The ocean is deep, and the sharks are hungry. But you have no choice. The chief's daughter is waiting. You tighten your loincloth. You check your ads, a stone cutting tool. You look at your crew, 3 other young men who are equally broke and desperate. You push the canoe into the water. The wood scrapes against the sand. You jump in. You aren't just going on a trip, you are going to the mint to print some money. But first, you have to pack, because you can't eat limestone. You are standing knee-deep in the lagoon, holding a woven basket of taro roots. The water is warm, lapping gently against your thighs. In front of you bobs your vessel, the Wa, or the Yopezi outrigger canoe. It looks like a giant, elegant water strider bug. To a modern eye, accustomed to steel container ships, this boat looks terrifyingly flimsy. The main hull is carved from a single breadfruit tree. It is long, narrow, and deep. Attached to one side by a framework of flexible wooden poles is the outrigger, a heavy log that floats parallel to the hull. This is the counterweight. It is the only thing stopping you from flipping over and becoming fish food the moment the wind hits the sail. You have to pack this thing, and you have to pack it for a siege. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The logistics of the void. The trip to Palau is about 250 to 300 miles. With good winds, it might take a week. With bad winds, it could take a month. And once you get there, you aren't checking into a hotel. You have to live on the beach in Palau for months, maybe years, while you carve the stone. You are packing for an expedition that has no definite end date. You start loading the coconuts. You toss them into the hull. Thud, thud. Coconuts are the perfect survival food. They are waterproof, they float, they contain high-calorie meat, and most importantly, they contain sterile water. You are loading hundreds of them. They roll around in the bottom of the boat like bowling balls. You will be sleeping on top of them. Your mattress for the next week will be a bed of hard, round nuts. Then comes the dried pandanus. You pack bundles of a strange, fibrous orange fruit. It tastes like sweet sawdust, but it doesn't rot it. It's the energy bar of the Pacific. But you can't just survive on nuts and fruit. You need protein. This leads to a niche. Slightly pungent detail, the fermented breadfruit mar. You load several heavy baskets lined with leaves. Inside is a sticky, dough-like paste. Months ago, your family buried peeled breadfruit in a pit in the ground and let it ferment. It turned into a sour, cheesy, preservation-proof dough. It smells strong. It smells like blue cheese that has been left in a locker room. But when you mix it with water and coconut cream, it is a feast. It is the fuel that powers your muscles. You pack it carefully. If seawater gets into the mar, it's ruined. You check the water supply. You have hollowed out gourds filled with fresh water, sealed with beeswax. You stash them in the coolest part of the hull, but you know they won't last forever. You are counting on the rain. You are counting on the sail to catch the squalls so you can funnel the water into your mouth. Now, you look at your crew. There are 7 of you. 7 men crammed into a space the size of a large canoe. This brings us to a massive academic controversy, the navigator's secret debate. For a long time, Western anthropologists believed that everyone on these canoes knew how to sail. They assumed it was common knowledge. Camp A, the egalitarians argued that Pacific sailing was a communal skill, shared by all men in the village. Camp B, the specialists argued that this is false. Navigation was a proprietary secret. Camp B suggests that on this boat, only one man knows where he is going, the master navigator Palau. The rest of you are just muscle. You are the engine. He is the GPS. The knowledge of the stars and the waves was a trade secret, guarded jealously by specific families. If the navigator falls overboard, you are all dead. You look at your navigator. He is an older man, sitting calmly at the stern, chewing betel nut. He isn't carrying a map. He isn't carrying a compass. He is carrying a song in his head. You finish? Loading. The canoe is sitting lower in the water now. It feels heavy, sluggish. You lash everything down with coconut fiber rope sennit. You have to tie it tight. If the canoe capsizes, and it might, you want your food to stay attached to the boat so you can flip it back over and still eat. You climb in. There is barely room to sit. Your knees are pressed against a basket of fermented paste. Your elbow is resting on a coconut. The smell of the lagoon rotting coral and sulfur fills your nose. You push off with a long bamboo pole. The canoe glides silently over the shallow water. You pass the reef. The water changes color from light turquoise to a deep, ominous indigo. The ocean's swell lifts you up, then drops you down. Your stomach does a little flip. You look back at Yap. The palm trees are shrinking. You are leaving the known world. You are heading into the deep blue. You check your pocket, or rather, the pouch tied to your waist. Inside are glass beads and turmeric. This isn't for you. This is for the Palaoans. You can't just walk onto their island and take their rocks. You have to pay for the privilege you are bringing. Bribes. But will it be enough? You worry about that later. Right now, you just have to find the island. And to do that, you have to stop looking with your eyes and start feeling with your your bottom. You are floating in a void of blue. For the last 3 days, you haven't seen a tree, a bird, or a cloud that looks like anything other than a smudge. The island of Yap has vanished behind you, and the island of Palau hasn't appeared in front of you. You are suspended in the middle of the great blue continent. It is hot that sun beats down on your skin, turning the salt spray into a crust of white crystals on your arms. You are thirsty, but you are rationing the coconuts. You are bored, but you are too terrified to sleep, and you are watching the navigator. He is sitting at the stern of the canoe, his legs crossed, his eyes half closed. He looks like he is napping. He hasn't moved in 4 hours. He hasn't looked at the horizon. He hasn't checked the sun. If you were a modern sailor, you would be screaming. Check the chart. Look at the compass. But there is no chart. There is no compass. There is only the navigator's bottom. This brings us to one of the most bizarre and brilliant technologies of human history. Wave piloting. 2. The ocean looks like a chaotic mess of waves. They go up, they go down. It's just water. But to the navigator, the ocean is a grid. It is a highway system made of energy. There is the main swell, the deep, rhythmic pulse of the ocean driven by the trade winds from the northeast. It is constant. It is the bass line of the song. Then, there are the current swells, local waves caused by storms, and then, the holy grail, the reflected swell. Here is the physics. When a massive ocean swell hits an island like Palau, it doesn't just stop, it bounces back, it echoes. This creates a subtle interference pattern in the water. Imagine throwing a rock into a pond. Ripples go out. Now imagine there is a brick in the pond. The ripples hit the brick and bounce back. Crossing the original ripples, the navigator is looking for that bounce, but he can't see it. The reflected waves are too small, maybe only an inch high, hidden amongst the chopped dot. So, he has to feel it. This leads to a niche, slightly hilarious anatomical fact. The testicular sensor. Master navigators in Micronesia and Polynesia openly taught that the most sensitive part of the body for detecting vibration was the testicles. By sitting cross-legged on the wooden hull, the navigator turns his body into a seismograph. He feels the rhythm of the boat, roll, roll, pitch, He memorizes the pattern of the main swell. If the pattern suddenly changes, if there is a sudden, sharp slap against the hull that disrupts the rhythm, he knows something is out there. He feels the island hitting the boat from 50 miles away. You watch him. He grimaces slightly. His hips twitch. He steers the canoe 2 degrees to the left. He just felt Palau. But while he is feeling the vibes, you are thinking about the map, or rather, the lack of one. This brings us to a massive academic controversy: the mental map versus accidental drift. In the mid-20th century, a historian named Andrew Sharp proposed a theory that enraged the Pacific people. He argued that ancient navigators weren't geniuses. They were just lucky. He claimed that their canoes couldn't sail into the wind. So they just drifted with the currents and crashed into islands by mistake. He called it drift voyaging. Camp A, the Sharpists said. It's statistically impossible to find a tiny island in a big ocean on purpose without instruments. Camp B, the experimental archaeologists said, hold my beer. In the 1970s, men like Mo Pialog, a Micronesian navigator, proved Sharp wrong. They sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti without instruments, hitting the target perfectly. They proved that the mental map was real. The navigator in your canoe isn't drifting. He is holding a complex 3D model of the Pacific in his head, triangulating his position using the stars at night and the feel of the water by day. He knows exactly where he is. Suddenly, the navigator opens his eyes. He points. Bird, he says. You squint. You see a tiny black speck against the sun. It is a noddy. Turn. That is a mainstream historical fact. The bird radius. Some seabirds, Like the albatross, sleep on the wing. They stay at sea for months. If you see one, it means nothing. You could be in the middle of nowhere. But the naughty tern, it is a commuter. It flies out to fish in the morning, but it must sleep on land at night. Its range is about 20 to 30 miles. If you see a naughty in the morning, you fly away from it. It's heading out to fish. If you see a naughty in the evening, you follow it. It is going home, and home is land. It is late afternoon. The bird is flying west. The navigator steers the canoe to follow the bird. The mood in the boat changes. The exhaustion vanishes. You grab your paddle and start digging into the water. Stroke dot, stroke dot. The water begins to change color. The deep, terrifying indigo fades into a lighter, friendlier blue. Then, you see it. A cloud that isn't moving. Most clouds drift with the wind. But clouds over land get stuck. They pile up on top of the island, anchored by the heat rising from the earth. It is a land cloud, and beneath it, a dark green line. You are standing on the beach, your feet sinking into the white sand of Palau. The sun is beating down on your neck, but you feel cold. This is the moment where your entire expedition lives or dies. Standing in front of you is the Abedjul, the high chief of Koror, flanked by warriors who look like they could snap your paddle in half with one hand. You are the intruder here. You are the desperate shopper. And the chief, he is the manager of the only store in the world that sells what you need. You reach into your pouch. You pull out a string of beads. They aren't tea, just pretty glass. To the Palauans, these beads, Udaud, are money. This brings us to a mainstream historical irony, the currency clash. In Yap, money is giant rocks. In Palau, money is tiny, ancient glass beads, likely trade beads from Asia that arrived centuries ago. The Palauans think you are insane for wanting their limestone cliffs. To them, limestone is just the ground. It is dirt. Conversely, you think they are insane for valuing these tiny glass beads. It is the perfect trade. You are swapping your trash for their trash, and both sides think they are robbing the other blind. You offer the beads. The chief inspects them. He holds them up to the sun. He checks for bubbles and cracks. He nods. But beads aren't tea enough. You are asking to cut down his mountain. You are asking to camp on his beach for months. You are asking for water and protection. He points at you, then he points at the taro patch behind the village. Then he points at a pile of rocks that need to be built into a wall. This leads to a niche, grim reality, the service, payment. You don't just pay with goods, you pay with sweat. Historical records show that Yapi's couriers often acted as a temporary labor force for the Palauan chiefs. You became, essentially, a serf. You built fish weirs. You repaired stone paths. You picked coconuts. You served as a mercenary in their local wars. You nod. You agree. You have just sold yourself into months of hard labor just for the permission to start more hard labor. The chief grunts. He gestures toward the limestone cliffs looming over the bay. Take what you want, he seems to say. But don't blame us if the mountain eats you. This brings us to a massive academic controversy. The magician versus slave, dynamic. How did the Palauans actually view the Yapis? Camp A, the subservience theory, argues that the Yapis were treated as second-class citizens, refugees, or slaves. They were exploited for their labor and allowed to take the stones only because it kept them busy and subservient. Camp B, the mystical theory, argues that the Yapis were feared. Oral traditions suggest the Palauans believed the Yapis possessed powerful magic over the weather and the sea. They let you quarry not out of pity but out of respect and a little fear that if they said no, you might summon a typhoon. You look at the chief. He does. T looks scared of you. He looks like a man who just got free landscaping for his garden. You suspect Camp A might be closer to the truth. The negotiation ends. You are dismissed. You walk back to your crew. They look anxious. We have the permit, you tell them. They cheer. They think the hard part is over. You look up at the cliffs. These aren't nice flat quarries like in Egypt. These are jagged, vertical walls of karst limestone hidden deep in the jungle. They are covered in razor-sharp vines, infested with mosquitoes, and guarded by gravity. You have to go up there. You have to find a solid vein of calcite, and you have to carve a perfect circle out of the side of a cliff. But you don't have iron chisels. You don't have dynamite. You don't have diamond saws. You look at your tool bag. Inside is a Tridacna gigas, a giant clam shell, and a fire starter. You are going to carve a mountain with a seashell. You lead your men into the jungle. The air gets hot and humid. The vegetation grabs at your ankles. You climb, you slip, you bleed. Finally, you find it. A wall of glistening, white limestone. It looks like frozen milk. It is beautiful. You tap it with your shell. Adzi, clink. It is hard. Rock hard. You look at the size of the rock you need. To impress the chief's daughter back home, you need a stone at least 6 feet in diameter. That's roughly 4 tons of rock. You look at the clam shell in your hand. You look at the mountain. You realize that you are going to be here for a very, very long time. But there is no turning back. You clear the brush. You build a small shelter. You start the fire. You are about to engage in fire setting, the ancient art of breaking rock with heat. You pile wood against the cliff face. You light it. The rock heats up. It expands. Then, you splash cold water on it. Crack. A flake of rock falls off. It's about the size of your fingernail. Only 4 tons to go. You settle in. The jungle hums around you. You strike the rock. Clink, clink. This is the rhythm of your life now. You are not a sailor anymore. You are a human woodpecker. And as the weeks turn into months, you will start to see the shape emerge from the cliff. A perfect white moon. But carving it is one thing. Moving it, that is a nightmare you haven't even begun to imagine. You have been in the jungle for 3 months. You look less like a dashing adventurer and more like a swamp creature. Your skin is covered in soot, mosquito bites, and stone dust. Your loincloth is tattered. You smell like a mixture of wood smoke and unwashed desperation, and you are holding a seashell. Specifically, you are holding the thick hinge part of a giant clam, Tridacna gigas. It has been ground down on a piece of coral until it has an edge sharp enough to shave with. This is your chisel. This is your jackhammer. You swing it, thwack. It hits the limestone face. A tiny spray of white dust puffs up. A chip the size of a grain of rice falls off. You swing again, thwack. Another grain of rice. You look at the sheer cliff face in front of you. You need to remove roughly 200 cubic feet of solid rock. At this rate, you will be done in the year 2050. This brings us to a mainstream historical reality, the pre-metal agony, before the Europeans arrived in the late 19th century with iron tools. The Yapese quarriers were working in the Stone Age. They were cutting stone with stone or shell. Limestone is relatively soft, about a 3 on the Mohs scale, and the clam shell is about the same hardness. It is a war of attrition. You aren't cutting the rock. You are annoying it until it leaves. But you have a secret weapon. Fire. You yell at your crew. They drag over a pile of dry ironwood logs. You stack them against the outline of the circle you are carving. You light it. The heat builds. The jungle air, already humid and hot, becomes an oven. You retreat behind a tree, shielding your eyes. You wait until the rock is glowing hot. Then, you signal the water carriers. They run forward with bamboo tubes filled with cold river water. Splash. Hiss. The thermal shock causes the limestone to exfoliate. The surface layer cracks and pops off in flakes. Steam fills the clearing. It smells like wet chalk and burning wood. As soon as the rock cools, you rush in with your clam adze. You hack away the loose, fractured layer. Then you build the fire again. Heat, quench hack. Repeat. You do this 10 times a day. Your hands are blistered, your eyebrows are singed, but slowly, miraculously, a shape begins to emerge from the cliff. It is a circle, a massive, white, glowing moon embedded in the gray mountain. It is 12 feet in diameter. It is beautiful, but beauty isn't enough. It has to sound right. This leads to a niche, sensory detail, the sonic audit. A rye stone isn't just a rock. It is a bell. Every few days you stop chipping, you take a piece of hardwood, and you strike the face of the stone. Bong, you listen. You are listening for a clear, resonant ring. If the stone sings, it is solid. If it goes thud or clunk, it means there is a hidden fracture inside. A micro crack. If you hear the thud, you have to walk away. You have to abandon the work of the last 2 months and start over on a new patch of cliff. You strike your stone. Boong, it sings. It is perfect. You feel a rush of dopamine that no modern shopping spree could ever provide. But why is this rock valuable? You are literally manufacturing money out of dirt. This brings us to a massive academic controversy, the labor theory of value debate. Economists and anthropologists love Yap. It is their favorite case study. Camp A, the Marxist labor theorists, argues that the stone has value because of the labor you are putting in right now. The value is stored sweat. The suffering is the currency. The harder it is to get, the more it is worth. Camp B, the scarcity theorists, argues that the value comes from the material. Limestone is non-existent on Yap. It is a rare import, like gold or diamonds. It is valuable because it is scarce and shiny. Camp C, the narrative theorists, argues that the stone is just a physical receipt for a story. The value is the rock. It is the story of the rock. This is the stone that crushed Legolas's foot. Or, this is the stone we fought the sharks for. Sweating in the jungle, agree with Camp A. This rock is worth a fortune because your back hurts. The circle is defined. You have cut a deep trench around it. Now, you have to detach it from the cliff face. You hammer wooden wedges into the back. You soak the wedges in water. The wood expands. Creak. Snap. The massive disc pops free from the mountain. It teeters for a second, then slides down the debris pile. Crash. The ground shakes. Birds fly up screaming. Dust settles. You run down. You check it. It didn't break. It is a 4-ton slab of calcite. It sparkles in the sun like a jewel. You touch it. It is cool and smooth. You are rich. In theory right now, you are just a guy with a very big rock in a very dense jungle. How do you move it? You can pick it up. You can roll it. It is too wide and will tip over. You need a handle. You need an axle. You need to put a hole in the middle. You pick up your clamshell again. You climb onto the center of the disc. You start chipping. You aren't making a donut shape because it looks cool. You are making a donut shape because it is the only way to apply physics to this monster. Without the hole, this stone stays in Palau forever. With the hole, you can turn a rock into a wheel. You look at your crew. They are exhausted. They are thinner than when you arrived. Dig, you order. You have to bore a hole through 2 feet of stone. It will take another month, but you don't mind, because every chip of stone you remove makes the money more valuable. You are carving your future, 1 flake at a time. But as you chip, you hear a rumble in the distance. Not the mountain thunder. The rainy season is coming. The jungle floor is about to turn into a swamp, and you have to drag a 4-ton wheel through 3 miles of mud to get to the ocean. You thought carving was hard. Physics is about to teach you a lesson in friction. You are sitting on top of your 4-ton stone coin. Panting, sweat is dripping off your nose and landing on the white limestone, leaving dark spots that vanish in seconds under the tropical sun. You have finally punched through. The hole is done. It is about 6 inches wide. rough but centered. You look through it. You can see the jungle floor on the other side. To a banker, a hole in a coin decreases its value. Less gold. To you, this hole is the value. It transforms this object from a big rock into a wheel. This brings us to the engineering of the axle. You don't just stick a stick in there. A normal branch would snap instantly under the torque of 4 tons. You need beetle nut palm or ironwood. You send your crew to find a tree trunk that is perfectly straight and hard as steel. They drag it back. You shave it down until it fits snugly into the hole. Now, you have an axle sticking out about 3 feet on either side of the stone. But you can just roll it on the ground. The jungle floor is soft, uneven, and covered in roots. If you roll a 4-ton stone on mud, it sinks. It becomes a permanent lawn ornament. You need a road, but you don't have asphalt. So, you build a slipway. You cut down hundreds of bamboo poles and small saplings. You lay them across the path, side by side, like railroad ties. Then, you create a frame. This is a mainstream historical fact. The A-frame drag. You don't just push the stone. You build a bamboo frame around it, lashing it to the axle. This frame keeps the stone upright, so it doesn't tip over and crush you. It also gives you handles. Lots of handles. You line up your crew, 7 men from Yap, plus about 20 Palauan laborers you hired. Bribed. Ready, you shout. Heave, the men push. The frame creaks, the stone groans. It doesn't move. Static friction is a beast. You need a lubricant. You grab baskets of taro skins and coconut husks. You throw them onto the bamboo slipway. You smash them, they are slimy. Heave. The stone lurches. It rolls forward 6 inches, then stops. Heave. Another 6 inches. This leads to a niche, sensory detail. The sound of money moving. It is a rhythmic, grinding chant, grunt. Crunch, slide, stop. The bamboo poles beneath the stone shatter under the weight, making a sound like gunshots. Crack, pop. You have to constantly run to the front, laying down fresh poles while the stone crushes the ones behind it. You are feeding the road to the stone. You move at a speed of about 100 yards. Per Dalton Y, the jungle fights you. Vines snag the frame. The mud sucks at your feet. Mosquitoes swarm your sweat. Soaked skin. One day the stone slips. The bamboo track breaks. The stone tilts. Watch out. The men on the left side scramble away. The massive disc crashes over onto its side. Thud. It shakes the ground. Silence. Everyone counts their limbs. No one is crushed, but now you have a 4-ton rock lying flat in the mud. How do you lift it back up? You don't have a crane. You use levers. You cut long, sturdy poles. You jam them under the edge of the stone. You build a fulcrum with logs. 1, 2, 3, lift. 20 men hang off the ends of the levers. The stone lifts an inch. You shove a rock under it. Lift. Another inch. Another rock. It takes 2 days just to stand it back up. You learn a valuable lesson. Momentum is your friend. Gravity is your enemy. This struggle brings us to an academic controversy. The public works debate. Some historians look at this immense effort and ask, why did the Palauans let this happen? Why did they let you cut down their forests for slipways? Camp A. The eco-imperialism view argues the Yappies were destructive. They ravaged the Palauan landscape, and the Palauans resented it but were powerless to stop the magic men. Camp B, the symbiosis view, argues that the stone paths you are building stayed there. The Palauans used the slipways later. The roads you cleared became their roads. The quarrying actually helped terraform the jagged interior into usable land. So, are you a vandal or a civil engineer? Probably a bit of both. Finally, after weeks of grunting and sweating, the trees thin out. The air gets salty. You break through the tree line. The beach, the ocean stretches out before you. It is blue, calm, and indifferent. You push the stone onto the sand, you collapse. You have moved a mountain to the sea. But as you look at the stone sitting on the beach, and then at your tiny fragile canoe bobbing in the lagoon, the math hits you. The stone weighs 8,000 pounds. The canoe can carry maybe 1,000 pounds of cargo before it sinks. If you put this stone on that boat, it will go straight to the bottom. You need a bigger boat. But you don't have one. You have bamboo, you have rope, and you have physics. You are going to have to build a raft. Not just any raft, a raft that can support a Toyota Land Cruiser made of rock and survive a typhoon. You look at the bamboo grove nearby. Get the axes. You tell your crew, you are about to become a naval architect, and you are going to learn about buoyancy. The hard way. You are standing in a grove of giant bamboo dendrocolumns. The stalks tower 80 feet above you, creaking in the wind like a haunted cathedral. They are thick, some as wide as your thigh, and hard as bone. You have an axe in your hand, you have a 4-ton rock on the beach, and you have a physics problem that would make a NASA engineer sweat. To float 8,000 pounds of stone, you need to displace 8,000 pounds of water. Bamboo is your miracle material. It is hollow, segmented, and incredibly buoyant. But you can just tie a few sticks together. You need a Leviathan. You start chopping, hack, crack, crash. The sound of falling bamboo echoes through the valley. You need hundreds of stalks. You are clear-cutting a forest to build a barge. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact: the compartmentalization of safety. Bamboo is nature's perfect pontoon. Unlike a hollow log, which sinks if you punch a hole in it, bamboo is divided into sealed chambers, nodes, every few feet. If a shark bites your raft, or you hit a reef, only one chamber floods. The rest keep floating. You are building the Titanic, but uncapsizable, hopefully. You drag the stalks to the beach, you lay them out. You aren't building a flat square. That would be too slow to tow. You are building a V-shaped or rectangular raft with a pointed bow, layered 5 or 6 stalks deep. Now, you need to bind them. You don't have nails. You don't have bolts. You don't have glue. You have Senet. This leads to a niche, sensory detail: the living rope. Senet is cordage, made from the fibers of coconut husks. You have spent your evenings rolling these fibers on your thigh until your skin is raw, braiding them into miles of rope. But here is the genius of Senet: it shrinks when wet. When you lash the bamboo together with dry Senet, it might feel a little loose, but the moment you push that raft into the ocean, the water hits the rope. The fibers swell and shorten, the knots tighten. The raft constricts, becoming a solid, unified unit. The ocean itself tightens the bolts. It is a machine that gets stronger the wetter it gets. You spend days lashing over, under loop, pull. Your hands are blistered. Your fingers are cramping. The raft grows. It is massive, maybe 40 feet long and 20 feet wide. It looks like a floating dance floor. But now, you face a design decision that divides historians to this day. Where do you put the stone? This brings us to a massive academic controversy: the submarine stone debate. Camp of the Deck. Loaders argues that you put the stone on top of the raft. It keeps the stone dry and visible, good for showing off, but it raises the center of gravity. A 4-ton weight sitting 3 feet above the water makes the raft top-heavy. If a wave hits, you flip. And if you flip, the stone sinks to the abyss. Camp B, the keel slingers, argues that the Yappies understood Archimedes' principle before Archimedes. They suggest the stone was slung underneath the raft, or in a well cut through the center, submerged in the water. Why? Because rock weighs less in water. Limestone has a specific gravity of about 2.7. In water, it loses about a third of its effective weight due to buoyancy. Your 8,000-pound stone only weighs about 5,000 pounds if it is underwater. Plus, a heavy keel stabilizes the raft. It stops it from flipping. You look at your raft. You look at the ocean. The submarine method sounds smart, but it has a flaw. Dragging a 4-ton rock through the water is like trying to tow a parachute. It creates massive resistance. Your canoe team will burn out in a day. You decide on a compromise. You build a well in the center of the raft. A strong, reinforced frame crib. The stone will sit low, partially submerged, or just above the waterline, keeping the center of gravity down, but not dragging fully in the deep. You finish the raft. It sits on the sand, looking like a prehistoric beast. You check the lashings one last time. They are tight. But now you have the ultimate problem. The raft is on the sand. The stone is on the sand. The ocean is 50 feet away, and the stone weighs more than all of you combined. You can just pick it up and put it on the raft. If you try to roll the stone onto the bamboo will crush. If you try to slide the raft under the stone, the friction will stop you. You need a crane. But you don't have a crane. You look at the sky. You look at the moon. You realize you don't need a machine. You need the planet to help you. You need the tide. You are about to perform a magic trick using gravity and water. You are going to trick the ocean into loading the cargo for you. You dig. You tell your crew to grab the shovels, giant clamshells and sticks. You dig a trench in the sand, leading from the ocean to the raft. You dig a hole under the raft. You are building a dry dock. You wait. The sun sets. The moon rises. It is a full moon, the same moon that inspired the shape of your money. And with the full moon comes the king tide, the highest tide of the month. You watch the water line. It creeps up the beach. It enters your trench. Trickle, gurgle, rush. The water surrounds the raft. The bamboo creaks. Then, slowly, majestically, the massive structure lifts. It floats. But the stone is still sitting on the beach, high and dry. You have the vehicle, but you haven't loaded the passenger. How do you bridge the gap? You realize you have to do something terrifying. You have to roll the stone into the water. You have to drown your money to save it. You look at your crew. They are scared. If the stone tips over in the surf, it will bury itself in the sand forever. Get the logs, you order. You are going to roll the stone into the shallows at low tide, park the raft over it at high tide, and then, well, you hope the rope holds. You are about to play a game of chicken with the Pacific Ocean. And if you lose, you are walking home. You are standing waist deep in the dark, warm water of the Palawan Lagoon. The moon is full, casting a silver path across the ocean's surface that looks deceptively peaceful. But down here, in the water, things are chaotic. It is low tide. The ocean has retreated, revealing a landscape of sharp coral, slime, and mud. And sitting right in the middle of this muck is your 4-ton limestone donut. You and your crew spent the last hour rolling it out here. It was a nightmare. The stone wanted to tip over. It wanted to sink into the silt. You had to use logs as rails, fighting the suction of the mud every inch of the way. Now, the stone is resting on a pair of massive ironwood logs, waiting for the ocean to come back. You look behind you. The massive bamboo raft is floating in the deeper water, tethered to a coconut tree on the beach. It looks like a floating fortress. This is the hydraulic lift protocol. You don't have a crane. You don't have hydraulics, but you have the moon. When the tide rushes back in, the king tide, the water level will rise about 6 feet. You are going to float the raft directly over the submerged stone. Then, you are going to dive down, lash the stone to the raft with your strongest ropes, and wait. As the water continues to rise, the raft will want to go up. The stone will want to stay down. It is a wrestling match between buoyancy and gravity. Buoyancy wins, and the stone lifts off the sea floor, dangling beneath the bamboo like a giant pendant. "Bring the raft," you shout. Your crew drags the bamboo leviathan over. It scrapes against the stone. You have to align it perfectly. The well, or the center of buoyancy, needs to be directly over the axle of the stone. If you are off by a foot, the raft will tilt. If it tilts, it flips. You dive under the raft. This brings us to a niche, painful reality. The coral scourge. The water is full of suspended limestone dust from your quarrying and sharp particles of coral. You are working blind, holding your breath, trying to thread a thick, rough coconut rope through the hole in the stone and around the bamboo beams. The rope is abrasive. The coral is sharp. By the time you surface, your hands and chest are covered in tiny cuts. The salt water stings. This is the tax. The ocean charges for doing business in her living room. You surface, gasping, tie it off. The crew hauls on the ropes. You make them tight. You want zero slack now. You wait. You climb onto the raft. The water is rising fast. You can feel the energy of the tide. It surges through the channels of the reef. The raft shudders. It wants to lift. The bamboo creaks, a low, moaning sound that vibrates through your feet. Creak. The ropes are singing under the tension. 8,000 pounds of rock are pulling down. 20,000 pounds of displacement are pulling up. Suddenly, a lurch. The deck shifts beneath you. You look over the side. The ironwood logs you placed under the stone are floating free. The stone is airborne, or rather waterborne. It is hanging. It is floating. You let out a cheer. You are a genius. You have tricked nature, but your celebration is cut short by a sound snap. One of the bamboo stalks in the outer layer fractures under the stress. The raft dips slightly to the left. Balance it, you scream. Your crew rushes to the right side of the raft, using their body weight to counter the tilt. It stabilizes. You realize that this raft is not a static object. It is a stressed structure. It is holding a massive weight for the entire journey home, 250 miles. This bamboo will be under constant tension. If the ropes rot, if the bamboo waterlogs, the stone drops. This leads to a massive academic controversy, the disposable raft theory. Archaeologists have found Rayeye stones at the bottom of the ocean near Palau and Yap. Clearly, many didn't make it. Camp A, the storm casualty theory, argues these were lost in typhoons. Camp B, the structural failure theory, argues that the rafts simply disintegrated. Bamboo rots, ropes fray. Some scholars suggest that for long voyages, the Yappies didn't just build one raft. They might have stopped at atolls along the way to rebuild the raft or replace the lashings. The logistics of maintenance were just as hard as the initial build. You aren't just driving a car, you are driving a car that is slowly dissolving. The tide is now fully high. The raft is floating free, high above the reef. The stone is dangling safely underneath, or in the well, acting as a massive keel. You have the cargo loaded. But now, you have to move it. You look at your canoe. It looks tiny next to the raft. You tie a tow line from the canoe to the raft. You get in the canoe. Your crew gets in. You raise the crab, claw sail. The wind catches it. The canoe leaps forward. The rope goes taut. And then nothing happens. The canoe stops dead. The jerk almost throws you overboard. You look back. The raft hasn't moved an inch. It is a wall in the water. The inertia is immense. You are an ant trying to tow a brick. Paddle. You scream. Your crew digs in. The wind fills the sail. The rope groans. Slowly, agonizingly, the raft begins to creep forward. You are moving at a speed of maybe 0.5 knots. A swimming turtle could beat you. You look at the horizon. Yap is 250 miles away. At this speed, it will take you forever. You need more power. You need the current. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact: the seasonal strategy. You did just pick a random day to leave. You waited for the monsoon switch. Usually, the trade winds blow from the northeast against you. But for a few weeks a year, The winds shift. The currents reverse. You are betting your life that you timed this window perfectly. If the wind switches back while you are out there, you will be pushed backwards to the Philippines, or simply drift until you die of thirst. You clear the reef. The water turns dark blue. The swell picks up. The raft behind you begins to bob. It doesn't move like the canoe. The canoe dances, the raft wallows. When the canoe goes up a wave, the raft is going down. The tow rope snaps tight, then goes slack, then snaps tight again. Jerk, slack, jerk. It is a rhythm of torture. Every jerk threatens to rip the stern off your canoe. You are heading northeast, into the void. The island of Palau sinks into the ocean behind you. There is no turning back now. You are tethered to 4 tons of ambition. And as the sun sets on your first day, painting the sky in blood orange, you notice the wind is picking up. Not the good wind, gusts, sharp, angry gusts. The waves are getting steeper. The raft is starting to surf down the face of the waves, threatening to ram your canoe from behind. You have a knife on your belt. You look at the tow rope. You know that if things get bad, if the raft threatens to pull the canoe under, you will have to make a choice. Cut the rope and lose the stone, the bride, and your honor, or hold on and maybe lose your life. Tonight, the ocean is going to ask you, how much is that money really worth? You are 3 days into the void. The island of Palau has long since vanished beneath the horizon, and the island of Yap is nowhere to be seen. There is only you, your crew, an endless expanse of heaving blue water, and the monster trailing behind you. You look back at the raft. It sits low in the water, a hulking mass of bamboo and stone. It looks innocent enough, bobbing lazily in the swell, but you know the truth. It is a parasite. It is a vampire, sucking the kinetic energy out of your canoe. This brings us to the hydrodynamic nightmare of towing. You are essentially an ant trying to drag a brick across a swimming pool. The physics are brutal. Your canoe is sleek. It wants to cut through the water. The raft is a barge. It wants to push the water. It creates a massive bow wave that acts like a brake. Every time your crew stops paddling for even a second to drink water or wipe sweat, the raft's drag instantly arrests your forward momentum. Jerk, you stop dead, and getting it moving again. It takes 10 minutes of screaming, straining effort just to get back up to walking speed. This leads to a niche, terrifying phenomenon, the overtake, or jackknifing. When you are sailing down the face of a large ocean swell, your canoe surfs. You speed up, but the raft is heavy. It has momentum. As it crests the wave behind you, it also accelerates. If the raft surfs faster than the canoe, the tow line goes slack. You see the raft looming behind you, a 4-ton wall of bamboo and rock bearing down on your fragile stern. If it hits you, it will crush the canoe like an eggshell. Paddle. The navigator screams. You have to paddle away from your own cargo to avoid being run over by it. Then, the raft hits the trough of the wave and slows down. The rope snaps tight again with a bone-jarring crack. Your neck whips back. The canoe shudders. This happens every single wave. You are living inside a car crash in slow motion. You look at the rope. It is fraying. You look at your hands. They are raw claws, permanently curled around the paddle. This brings us to an academic controversy. The raft sail debate. Historians and maritime archaeologists look at these voyages and ask, did they really just tow it? Campa, the tow purists, argues yes. The canoe provided all the propulsion. The raft was a dumb barge. Camp B, the raft sailors, argues that this is physically unsustainable. They suggest the Yappies rigged a mast and sail on the raft itself to help. If Camp B is right, your job would be easier, in theory. But in practice, a raft with a sail is a nightmare to steer. It has no keel, except the stone, which is round. It creates lee helm. It wants to spin in circles. If you put a sail on that raft, it might just drag your canoe sideways into oblivion. You look at your raft. No sail. You are Camp A. You are doing this the hard way. Night falls. The wind picks up. This is the danger zone. You can see the waves, but you can feel them. The navigator is tense. He is feeling the reflected swell from Yap, but it's weak. The main swell is getting confused. The wind is shifting. It is swinging from the west, your friend, to the north, your enemy. The waves are getting steeper. They are breaking. Whitecaps are glowing in the moonlight. You realize the raft is taking on water. Bamboo floats, yes, but after days in the ocean, it starts to get waterlogged. It sits lower. The waves are washing over the stone now. The stone is acting like a sea anchor. The drag is increasing, and then it happens. A rogue wave, a steep, breaking monster, rises out of the dark. It lifts the canoe high. You look down into the trough. The raft is down there, heavy and sluggish. The canoe slides down the face of the wave. The rope goes slack, but the raft doesn't rise. The wave breaks on top of the raft. Thousands of gallons of water crash onto the bamboo platform. The raft dives. It's not floating. It's submarine. The rope snaps, tight with a violence you have felt before. The stern of your canoe is yanked underwater. Water pours in. Bail. Someone screams. You are sinking. The raft is trying to drag you down to the bottom of the Pacific. You scramble for your knife. The navigator is shouting orders, but the wind tears them away. You look at the rope. It is vibrating like a guitar string, tight as a steel bar. If you cut it, the raft is gone. The stone is gone. The marriage is gone. The months of labor in the jungle are gone. If you don't cut it, you drown. This is the sunk cost fallacy in its most literal deadly form. You have invested so much. Can you let it go? You hold the knife blade against the rope. The canoe is tilting up at a 45-degree angle. You are staring at the sky. Cut it. The navigator screams. You slice twang. The tension releases instantly. The canoe slams back down onto the water, rocking violently. You spin around. You look back into the dark. You see the white foam of the waves. You see the dark shape of the raft bobbing back up to the surface. Now free, it drifts away. It gets smaller and smaller. And then it is gone. You sit in the bottom of the canoe, shivering. You are alive, but you are poor. You have just thrown a fortune into the sea. But wait, does the ocean really erase the value, or does the story continue? You are about to learn the most mind-bending economic lesson of Yap. A lesson that modern cryptocurrency enthusiasts are just now rediscovering. Just because you can see the money, doesn't mean it isn't there. You are sitting in the canoe, soaked, shivering, and emotionally wrecked. The storm has passed, leaving behind a calm, mocking sea. Behind you, the ocean is empty. The raft is gone. The 4-ton stone, the fruit of months of sweat and blood, is currently resting somewhere on the abyssal plain. Thousands of feet down, likely being inspected by a very confused giant squid. You have failed. You are returning to Yap empty-handed. You imagine the look on the chief's face. You imagine the shame. But as you paddle back into the lagoon of Yap, something strange happens. You tell your story. You stand before the village elders. You explain the size of the stone. You describe the whiteness of the limestone. You recount the struggle in the jungle, the building of the raft, and the magnificent tragic battle with the storm. You describe exactly where you cut the rope, and the elders nod. They talk amongst themselves. The high chief stands up. We accept it, he says. This brings us to the most famous economic paradox in history, the invisible stone. The elders decide that the accident was not your fault. The stone existed. You quarried it. You owned it. The fact that it is currently underwater is a mere logistical detail. They agree that the stone is still yours. Its value is still valid. You can use it to pay the bride price. You can use it to buy land. Everyone in the village agrees to pretend that the stone is sitting in front of your house, even though it is technically sitting at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. This leads to a massive academic controversy, the Bitcoin parallel. Modern economists go wild for this story. Kampa, the crypto enthusiasts, argues that the Rye stone is the original blockchain. Think about it. The stone itself is ins teeth the money. The ledger is the money. The ledger is the collective memory of the village. Everyone knows who owns which stone. When you spend a stone, you don't move it. It's too heavy. You just announce to the village, this stone now belongs to Dave. The village updates its mental ledger. The stone at the bottom of the sea is the ultimate proof of this concept. It is a digital asset before digital existed. It exists purely as an entry in the public record. Camp B, the materialists, argues that this is over-romanticized. They say the invisible stone was a rare exception, a pity prize for a brave effort, not the standard operating procedure. Most stones were physically present, but for you, the theory doesn't matter. The fact is, you are rich, you get the girl, you get the status. You point to the empty ocean and say, that is my bank account. And people respect you. But while the invisible stone is a nice story, the reality of the Yappies economy was about to be shattered by something much heavier than rock. It was about to be shattered by inflation. Enter David O'Keefe. The year is 1871. You are an old man now, sitting by the lagoon. You see a ship enter the harbor. Not a canoe. A massive, smoke-belching, iron-hulled schooner. A white man with a red beard steps off. He is Irish-American. He is shipwrecked, broke, and looking for an angle. He sees the stones. He sees how much you value them. And he has a brilliant, destructive idea. He sails to Palau, but he does bring clamshells. He brings iron tools. He brings dynamite. He brings a modern ship with a winch and a crane. He starts quarrying stones on an industrial scale. He cuts them perfectly round. He cuts them fast. He loads them onto his ship effortlessly. He brings them back to Yap by the hundreds. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact, the O'Keefe inflation. O'Keefe floods the market. He trades these perfect machine-cut stones for copra, dried coconut meat, and sea cucumbers. He becomes the king of Yap. But something interesting happens. The elders look at O'Keefe's stones. They are big, they are flawless, but they are cheap. They didn't cost any suffering. No one died for them. No one wrestled a shark for them. So, the elders declare that O'Keefe's stones are worth less than the old, jagged, smaller stones brought by canoe. They create a two-tier currency system. High-value canoe stones, proof of work, low-value O'Keefe stones, fiat currency. You watch the young men unloading these massive rocks from the ship. They are laughing. They aren't tired. You shake your head. They don't understand. You mutter. The value is in the rock, it is in the pain. But even with the inflation, the system survives. The stones are lined up along the stone money banks. In the villages, they form walls of wealth. And now, you have one final task. You have to teach your son how to be a banker. Because owning the stone is easy. Remembering who owns it, that takes a village. You walk him to the bank, a path lined with mossy stones. See that one? You point to a massive broken rock that belongs to the family of Tamag. His grandfather died getting it. See that one? You point to the empty ocean. That one is ours. You are about to explain the concept of the distributed ledger to a 6-year-old. And you are going to realize that money in its purest form is just a promise that everyone agrees not to break. We are jumping forward in time now. The era of the canoe and the bamboo raft is fading. The year is 1871. You are standing on the beach of Yap, but the silence of the lagoon is broken by a sound that doesn't belong in paradise. Chug, chug. Black smoke is staining the pristine sky. A ship is entering the harbor. It isn't a delicate wooden proa. It is a hulking, iron-fastened schooner named the Catherine. Standing at the helm is a man who looks like a pirate from a storybook. He has a flaming red beard, a loud laugh, and a plan that is about to destroy your economy. David Dean O'Keefe. He is an Irish-American castaway who washed up on Yap half-dead a few years ago. You nursed him back to health, and this is how he repays you, by breaking the bank. O'Keefe has realized something brilliant and terrible. He knows you want the stones. He knows you are willing to die for them. But he also knows that you lack the technology to get them easily. So, he makes a deal with the chiefs. I will take you to Palau, he says. I will give you iron chisels. I will load the stones onto my ship with a winch. You won. T have to build rafts. You won. T have to die in storms. All I want in return is copra, dried coconut meat, and sea cucumbers. It sounds like a great deal. It is the Industrial Revolution arriving in the Stone Age. You watch as the young men of the village board his ship. They aren't scared. They are excited. They aren't packing fermented breadfruit. They are eating canned corned beef. They sail to Palau with iron tools. They don't chip the rock. They slice it. With the ship, crane. They don't wrestle the stone. They lift it. They quarry stones that are bigger than anything ever seen before. Some are 12 feet tall, and they bring them back by the hundreds. This brings us to the first case of hyperinflation in the Pacific. Suddenly, the beach is lined with massive, perfect, round stones. But the village elders, the keepers of the ledger, are not happy. They look at these new stones. They are too perfect. They are too easy. They hold a council. These stones, the High Chief declares, kicking a massive O'Keefe stone, are not money. This leads to a fascinating economic stratification. The elders decide that value comes from suffering. The old stones, the small, jagged, ugly ones brought by canoe, cost lives. They are soaked in blood and fear. They are high value. The new stones, the big, shiny ones brought by O'Keefe, cost nothing but coconuts. They are low value. They are the fiat currency of Yap. They are flashy, but hollow. You can use O'Keefe stones to buy a pig, maybe. But you can use them to buy a high-ranking bride or settle a war. They lack the soul of the canoe voyages. You watch O'Keefe grow rich. He builds a mansion on an island in the harbor. He flies the Confederate flag. Oddly enough, he becomes the king of Yap. But he never understands why the old men look at his massive stones with contempt. He thinks he is printing money. The elders know he is just printing wallpaper. But regardless of their value, these stones still have to be moved. O'Keefe's ship drops them at the dock. But your village is 5 miles inland, through the jungle, and O'Keefe's crane doesn't go inland. So, even in the age of iron, you still have to go back to the old ways. You have to drag them. You gather the village. The O'Keefe stone sitting on the dock weighs 6 tons. It is a monster. You loop the ropes through the center hole. You lay the bamboo tracks. Heave. The stone moves. It crushes the path. It snaps the saplings. You realize that while the getting was easy, the owning is still hard. You have to park this thing in front of your house, and erecting a 6-ton stone is a feat of engineering that rivals Stonehenge. You are standing in front of your house, a traditional thatched structure with a high-peaked roof, sitting on a stone platform. But you aren't looking at the house. You are looking at the empty spot of dirt right next to the path. This is the parking spot. And you are about to park the most difficult vehicle in the world. You have dragged the stone from the beach, through the jungle, and now onto the main street of the village. The street is paved with asphalt. It is paved with stone pavers and lined with hibiscus hedges. This is the Malal. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact, the open-air bank in Yap. There are no bank vaults. There are no security guards. The bank is the village itself. The stones are lined up along the sides of the dancing grounds or the pathways, leaning against trees or propped up by smaller stones. Why? Because they are too heavy to steal. If a thief wants to steal your money, he has to bring 20 friends and a team of logs. It's not exactly a stealth operation. The security of the currency is guaranteed by its sheer mass. But right now, your stone is lying flat on the ground. A flat stone looks like a discarded millstone. A standing stone looks like money. You have to stand it up. You look at your crew. They are exhausted, but this is the final push. You dig a hole, a slot in the earth, just deep enough to catch the bottom edge of the donut. You insert massive timber levers under the top edge. 1, 2, up. The stone tilts. It is heavy. It wants to slide back down and crush your feet. You jam logs underneath it to catch it. Up. It rises to 45 degrees now. You use ropes. You pull from the other side. Pull. The stone teeters on the edge of the hole for a terrifying second. It balances there, defying gravity. A 4-ton vertical wheel. Then, thud. It drops into the slot. It stands. You rush to pack dirt and small stones around the base. You wedge it tight. You step back. It is magnificent. It stands taller than you. It gleams white against the green jungle. You have done it. You have withdrawn your savings from the Bank of Nature and deposited it in the Bank of Yap. You sit down on the stone platform of your house. You wipe the sweat from your eyes. Now you watch the neighbors. They walk by. They look at the stone. They nod. They don't say anything, but you know what they are thinking. He is a man of substance. He has hard money. This leads to a niche, social reality, the moss of compound interest. Over time, the limestone will weather. It will turn gray. Moss and lichen will grow on it. Vines will wrap around it. In Western culture, a dirty dollar bill is gross. In Yap, a mossy stone is better. The moss shows age. It shows that the stone has been part of the village for a long time. It gives the currency a sense of permanence. A shiny new stone looks like new money. Brash and tacky. An old green stone looks like old money. Established and powerful. You are literally growing interest in the form of fungus. But ownership is tricky. One day, you might need to buy something big. Maybe you need to pay a fine to another village, or you need a lot of pigs for a feast. So, you spend the stone. But you don't move it. You just stand in the malal with the other party and the witnesses. This stone, you say, patting your mossy giant, is now yours. The other man nods. It is mine. And then he walks away. The stone stays in your front yard. It decorates your house, but everyone knows it belongs to him. This brings us to a massive academic controversy. The symbolic capital versus utilitarian debate. Anthropologists have argued for decades. Is this actually money? Camp A, the economists, argues yes. It acts as a store of value and a medium of exchange. It functions exactly like gold reserves in the Federal Reserve. The gold sits in a vault and doesn't move, only the numbers change. The rye stones are the same. Camp B, the sociologist, argues no. It is symbolic capital. You don't buy groceries with a rye stone. You don't buy a fish. You use it for social transactions, marriages, apologies, alliances. It is less like a dollar bill and more like a crown jewel or a medal of honor. It buys status, not goods. You look at your stone. To you, it isn't a theory. It is a memory. You trace the rough edge with your finger. You remember the jungle in Palau. You remember the sound of the clamshell chipping the rock. You remember the fear in the storm when the raft almost sank. Every crack, every chip on this stone tells a story. That chip on the left, that happened when the bamboo slipway broke. That stain on the bottom. That S from the mud of the taro patch. You realize that you aren't just looking at wealth. You are looking at a frozen moment of your own history. The stone is a monument to your own courage, and that is why it is valuable. Gold is just metal dug up by someone else. This stone is you. Night falls over the village. The fireflies come out, dancing around the hole in the center of your money. You feel a deep sense of peace. The labor is over. The stone is set. But the story is quite done, because eventually you will die. The stone will stay, and your children, and their children will have to remember who it belonged to. You are about to rely on the ultimate backup drive, the human brain. You are an old man now. Your hair is gray, your skin is wrinkled like the bark of a breadfruit tree, and your knees creak when it rains. A souvenir from the damp nights on the bamboo raft. You are sitting on the stone platform of your house, leaning back against the mossy, cool surface of your massive ray stone. Today, you are going to spend it. You aren't buying a loaf of bread. You are buying political influence. Or perhaps you are settling a dispute between two warring villages. Or maybe you are buying a massive plot of taro fields for your grandson. Whatever the purchase, the price is 1 4-ton limestone donut. But here is the beauty of the system. You don't have to move it. You look at the stone. It has settled into the earth. Vines have wrapped around the base. It is part of the landscape. Digging it up would be a hassle. It would be rude to the worms. So, you call a meeting. You gather the chiefs. You gather the neighbors. You gather the person you are buying from. Everyone sits in a circle, chewing betel nut. You stand up. You point to the stone. This stone, you announce, the one brought by the canoe the shark, S-tooth, quarried in the days of the great storm. This stone now belongs to Tamag. Tamag stands up. He nods. I accept the stone, that it. No paperwork, no handshake, no lawyers. The transaction is complete. The stone hasn't moved an inch. It is still sitting in your front yard. It will probably stay there for another 100 years. But, in the mind of the village, the ownership tag has shifted. If you tried to sell it to someone else tomorrow, the whole village would shout, "Hey, that's Tamag's stone." This brings us to the mainstream historical fact, the distributed ledger. Long before computers, the Yappies invented a database, but instead of servers, they used brains. The ledger was distributed across the minds of the entire community. Every adult on the island knew who owned the major stones. To hack this system, to steal a stone, you wouldn't just have to move the rock. You would have to hack the brains of 5,000 people. You would have to convince everyone that they remembered wrong. It is remarkably secure. It is the human blockchain. But there is a catch. This leads to a niche, fragile reality. The death of memory. What happens if the village dies? What happens if a plague hits, or a war, and the old men who remember the history are killed? If the memory dies, the value dies. A stone without a story is just a rock. There are stones on Yap today that are orphan stones. They sit in the jungle, massive and beautiful, but no one knows who owns them. No one knows their name. They are bankrupt assets, demonetized by amnesia. You look at your grandson sitting at your feet. Listen, you tell him, this stone is not ours anymore, but we keep it safe for Tamag. Do not forget. You are uploading the data to the next generation. This brings us to an academic controversy, the double spend problem. In modern crypto, the biggest fear is the double spend, using the same digital coin twice. Did this happen in Yap? Camp A, the cynics, argues that yes, people lied. A man might promise a stone to one family for a bride, and then promise the same stone to another family for a canoe, hoping they wouldn't talk to each other. Camp B, the social trust theorists, argues that the island was too small for fraud. Everyone knew everyone's business. If you tried to double spend a 4-ton rock, you would be socially exiled. The system relied on radical transparency. You watch Tamag walk away. He looks happy. He is richer now, even though his hands are empty. You look at the stone. It is still shielding you from the wind. It is still a nice backrest. You have lost the wealth, but you have kept the furniture. But the world is changing. The Germans are coming, then the Japanese. They don't care about your mental ledger. They don't care about the stories. They see your money, and they don't see currency. They see construction material. You are about to witness the greatest bank robbery in the history of the island, and they aren't going to steal the stones to spend them. They are going to steal them to crush them. The palm trees are shaking again, but this time it is the wind, and it is a storm. It is the rumble of trucks and the tread of heavy boots. Time has moved forward. The era of the canoe is gone. The era of O'Keefe is gone. We are now in the 1930s and 40s. The world is at war, and your tiny island, a speck in the vast Pacific, has suddenly become strategic real estate. First, it was the Germans. They were strange overlords. They wanted you to build roads. You didn't want to build roads. So, the German governor did something genius. He didn't beat you. He didn't put you in jail. He walked into the village with a pot of black paint. He found the biggest, most valuable ray stones. The ancient ones brought by canoe. The ones with the deepest stories. And he painted a black cross on them. This stone, he announced, now belongs to the Kaiser. It will stay here, but it is ours. If you want it back, you will build the road. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact, the German hack. The Germans successfully hacked the Yappies blockchain. They understood that the physical location of the stone didn't matter, only the ownership mattered. By marking the stones, they seized the value without moving the weight. The Yappies were horrified. Their bank accounts had been frozen. They worked furiously to build the roads, scrub the paint off, and reclaim their wealth. The system worked. The Germans respected the ledger. But then the Germans left, and the Japanese Empire arrived. And they do not care about the ledger. You are standing in the jungle, watching a group of soldiers inspect your family's stone. It is the same stone your grandfather quarried. It is mossy, jagged, and beautiful. The soldiers aren't looking at it with respect. They are measuring it. They are looking at it not as money, but as aggregate. This leads to the darkest chapter in the history of the Rai, the Great Crushing. The Japanese military needs an airstrip. They need bunkers. They need concrete. To make concrete, you need crushed limestone. Usually, you have to quarry it. But here, on Yap, the quarry is already sitting in the front yards of the houses. The work has already been done. To the soldiers, these aren't sacred artifacts. They are pre-cut construction blocks. You watch in horror as a bulldozer approaches. It lowers its blade. It slams into the stone. Crunch. The stone that survived the typhoon. The stone that cost 3 lives to bring from Palau. The stone that paid for your mother's wedding is toppled into the dirt. It is dragged away. It is thrown into a rock crusher, grind. Dust. Your fortune is turned into a runway. This brings us to a massive academic controversy. The cultural genocide versus military necessity. Debate historians argue about the intent. Campa, the cultural erasure theory, argues that this was a deliberate attempt to break the spirit of the Yappies people. By destroying their money, you destroy their history, their status, and their social hierarchy. It is a way of erasing their identity. Camp B, the pragmatists, argues that in the desperation of WW, with American bombers approaching, the soldiers didn't care about culture. They were terrified. They needed a runway now. They would have crushed the Mona Lisa if it could stop a bullet. It was malice. It was panic. You run into the jungle. You find the other stones, the smaller ones, the hidden ones. You call your neighbors. Push. You are doing the work of your ancestors in reverse. Instead of dragging the stones out to be seen, you are dragging them in to be hidden. You shove them into swamps. You cover them with palm fronds. You bury them in mud. You are hiding your bank account from the bank robbers. You watch the O'Keefe stones, the massive, machine-cut ones, get dragged away first. There is a grim irony here. The low-value stones are the best for construction because they are uniform. The inflation is curing itself by being turned into pavement. But they take the old ones too, according to estimates. The Japanese military destroyed or repurposed thousands of stones. They used them as anchors. They used them as foundation blocks. Some of the rise stones are still there today, buried under the tarmac of the Yap International Airport. When a modern plane lands in Yap, it is literally landing on the crushed wealth of the 19th century. You stand by the side of the new airstrip. The dust is settling. The soldiers are gone. The war is ending. You walk out to the runway. You look at the gray concrete. You know that somewhere in there is your grandfather's stone. Is the value gone? The physical object is destroyed. You can see it, you can lean against it, but you remember it. The village remembers it. You realize something profound. The Germans hacked the system because they understood it. The Japanese could kill the system because they did understand it. They thought that by destroying the rock, they destroyed the money. But the money was never the rock. The money was the agreement. The stone in the runway still exists in the mind of the village. That section of the tarmac. You whisper, pointing to a patch of gray. That belongs to my family. The currency has shifted forms again. First, it was limestone. Then it was the memory of limestone. Now, it is the memory of the destruction of limestone. The story has just gotten one layer deeper. You walk back to your house. The spot in the front yard is empty. A patch of dead grass marks where the stone stood for 50 years. It looks sad, but you sit down on the empty spot anyway. You lean back against the air. You close your eyes, and you can still feel the cold, hard surface of the stone against your back. It is still there. You just can't touch it anymore. We are stepping into the present day. The roar of the WE bombers has faded into history. The Japanese bulldozers are rusted ghosts. In the jungle, you are standing on the side of the road. In modern Yap, a Toyota pickup truck drives by, blasting reggae music. The driver waves at you. He is using US dollars to buy gas. But look to your left. Lined up along the path, sitting quietly under the shade of the hibiscus trees, are the survivors. The stones. They are old now. They are covered in green moss and gray lichen. Some are broken in half. Some are half buried in the mud. To a tourist stepping off a plane, they look like neglected garden ornaments. But you know better. This is the Bank of Yap, and the vault is open 24/7. This brings us to the final mainstream historical reality. The dual currency system today. The people of Yap use dollars to buy spam, rice, and beer. But for the things that really matter, traditional apologies, land rights, or the transfer of chiefly power, the dollar is useless. You can say, "I am sorry," with a stack of green paper. You have to say it with a rock. This is the concept of ma'am apology. If you offend a high chief, you don't pay a fine. You present a stone. The weight of the stone represents the weight of your regret. You physically drag your shame into his yard and leave it there. You walk down the malal, the stone path. You stop in front of a particularly large, jagged stone. You close your eyes. You can almost hear the sound of the clam shell chipping against it. You can hear the bamboo raft creaking in the swell. This stone hasn't moved in 100 years. The man who owns it lives in a completely different village. He might never even visit it, but he knows it is here, and everyone else knows it is his. This leads to the final academic controversy, the dead versus living ledger. Is this system still alive? Camp A. The cynics argues that the stones are now just museum pieces, cultural heritage kept around for tourists. They say the real power is the USD. Camp B. The believers argues that the system is actually more robust than the dollar. When the U.S. economy crashes, or when banks fail, the stone remains. The ledger in the mind cannot be hacked. It cannot be inflated, because no one is quarrying new stones anymore. It is a closed, deflationary, perfectly secure system in a world of digital numbers and volatile markets. The Yappi stone is the only asset that literally cannot bubble, because it is too heavy to float. You sit down on the mossy edge of the stone. It feels cool. It feels solid. You realize that the journey you took, the risk, the ocean, the struggle, was not about getting rich. It was about creating trust. Money is just a story we all agree to believe in. The paper in your wallet is a story about the government. The digits in your bank account are a story about servers. The stone is a story about us, about the village, about the ancestors who didn't give up. You lean back. The sun is setting, turning the Pacific into a sheet of hammered gold. The stone supports you. It holds you up. It is the ultimate backrest. You have carried the weight of the world across the ocean. You have dragged mountains through the jungle. But now you can put the burden down. The ledger is updated. The transaction is verified. The village remembers. You don't have to carry it anymore. The final deposit. And so, the journey ends. The heavy ropes have been coiled and put away. The bamboo rafts have dissolved back into the ocean. The noise of the chisels and the shouts of the quarrymen have faded into the quiet hum of the jungle insects. You can stop pushing now. You can stop pulling. The friction is gone. Imagine you are back in your own bed. It is soft, unlike the hard deck of the canoe. It is warm, unlike the cold spray of the reef. The weight of the stone, that 4-ton burden of ambition and fear, is no longer pressing on your chest. You have deposited it safely in the bank of the night. Feel your muscles relaxing, the tension in your shoulders, the ache in your hands from gripping the paddle. Let it all slide away, rolling off you like water off a stone. You are light, you are buoyant, you are floating on a calm, dark lagoon where the tide is always gentle. The village is asleep. The stones are standing guard in the moonlight, silent and eternal. They will remember the story for you, so you don't have to. You can let go of the memory. You can let go of the math. You are safe. You are rich in rest. Let the darkness close over you like the warm waters of the Pacific. Drift. Sleep. The story ends here. Good night.